Wait, let me ask you this. Are we being filmed? I mean, I know.
Yeah, this is all videotape, so you can't, if you can, you can flip me the bird right now, everybody will see it. So don't do that. Yeah. We saw it.
That was the American version.
That's the American version sideways? Okay.
How do you do that? Okay.
That's good. At MBA Chartered Professional Accountants, we have 3 core beliefs. 1, we believe that business owners are the most important people on the planet. 2, we believe that the traditional accounting firm business model is flawed and fails to serve you. And 3, we believe the MBA way gives you what you truly want and deserve, resources and advice that helps you grow your business and your life. This is the MBA Way podcast. Hey everyone, it's Erik Solbakken, and this is the MBA Way podcast. I have an incredible guest for you on this week's call. It's not a call, it's an interview. I keep getting messed up, Don. I'm thinking I'm having a call. So for those of you who were at MBA, now when did we do that event? That was a year ago, wasn't it? Was it a year ago we did the event? Yeah. A year ago, we did a live event where Don flew in to Kelowna and we did a live event. It was all around the perfect plan. And Don is a great friend of mine, and I can give you a quick little rundown. He's classically trained economist, but he prefers to call himself a frustrated anthropologist. I think that's one of my favorite lines I see in that. But Don did he did a research study and created what was, I think, one of the most mind blowing, and yet at the same time, very it's very logical once you understand the perfect plan, but when you first hear it for the first time, it's kind of like, holy crap, that's why things work the way they do. He's the author of the perfect plan. He has built teams averaged over about $1 billion in revenue and sales per year. The list could go on and on. He's also a former Ranger. So, I don't get into the ring with him. Let's put it that way. Right. Here, what we're going to talk about today, Don, is I really want to find out more about what your next project is. Like what's going on in this next project. And that's what I'm really excited about. But before we get to that question, I want you to tell everybody a little quick backstory about you and how you came up with the perfect plan. And then we'll transition into the next phase that we're going to share with our listeners.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. First of all, before we even get into this, thank you for what you're doing. This is an awesome podcast. You're helping people all over the world. The MBA way is real, and I think the more people that talk about that, the more you put yourself out there, you just don't know who you're going to help. You just don't know. You don't know who's going to be listening to this or who might a year from now listen to this and say, I needed to hear that today. So thank you, man, for what you're doing. This is awesome. So I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Don. Well, I appreciate that, man, a lot. We're really excited at MBA because we want to bring resources to our business owner clients and our listeners. And so, no accounting firm is doing this, as you know. Like the MBA way is about empowering business owners, and it's like not just in accounting and tax, but we want to bring other resource to them. And that's why I'm so excited to share you with them. And that's why we flew you all the way up into Kelowna to do that special event. But for those who saw Don before, just hold on, because later on in this podcast, he's going to reveal the prequel to the perfect plan, which is actually the second book, but yet it's the first book. It's kind of like Star Wars. I think you're pulling
it's out of order, aren't you?
Right. It's out of order. You're pulling a Star Wars. But anyways, let's get back on track here. Backstory on the perfect plan. Tell me about
that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And you're right. I'm a classically trained economist. I've got a bunch of letters behind my name that don't mean anything. PhD means piled high and deep. It doesn't mean too much, but it means you put in some effort, and you study a few things and figure some things out. But I really am a frustrated anthropologist. And the reason is I care more about decisions and why people do what they do than I care about yield curves and interest rates. And we can talk about that all day long, and it's boring and it's benign. And most importantly, most of my friends in the world of economics are really historians, man. They're talking about what happened yesterday and why it happened. When you switch to anthropological economics or behavioral economics, which is what I do, you're looking into the future and you're saying, based on what we know about human behavior, this is the most probable outcome. So it's a great way of looking into the future because people get confused about humans. They think we're all crazy and chaotic, and we're not. We are very, very predictable. And it's so predictable that you can actually look at people and forecast what they're going to say before they do it once you kind of understand the process and what's going on. So what were you going to say?
No, you said something there, and I just had this light bulb moment go off. And that's why I love these interviews, is because I know each other. We've known each other for years, man. And we've done events together. We've done collaborations together. We've started businesses together. Like, you just said something and I just went, holy crap. You explained your frustration with economists as the same way that I have the frustration with accountants. Accountants are the same thing. Accountants are always about, well, this is what happened in the past. This was happened. But we're at MBA, we're talking about, well, what's your future? Yeah. Where's the future? And so that's a complete mirroring there. So when you said that, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm like doing the bobblehead doll.
Yeah. Well, you know what that is? I can tell you. It's the truth. And the truth is in the numbers. But most historians, whether they be economics or accounting based, and you've said this for years, 99% of the accountants in the world just put numbers in boxes. They don't think beyond that. Most economists look at adverse inverse effects between this yield curve, this ISLM. They throw out all these big words, to make it sound like they know what they're talking about. And they do. I'm not knocking it, but they're talking about what happened yesterday. It is so much more fun, man, to look at the future and say, this is what's going to happen. If you move this over here, you do this over here. If you do this and this. And by the way, I can tell you to the second what that person is going to do over there based on what we know from our past experience, the current circumstances, and our future hopes and dreams. And people are so predictable. And it really is depending on what you want. You want somebody who puts numbers in boxes? Plenty of them out there. You want somebody who's going to look at your numbers and say, within these numbers, even when you're the most confused, when you're emotional, when you don't know what to do, guess what? The truth is in those numbers. But how are you going to do something with it? What are you going to do out into the future? And it's not all debits and credits. It's like, where's the value here? Where's the memorable moment that you're creating with this? What really matters? What are you in love with that you shouldn't be? Like one thing I always tell people in economics, I've got 3 rules. Number 1, never fall in love with an asset, ever. It's just an asset. You fall in love with people and you fall in love with memories. You don't fall in love with assets. Number 2 is you don't fall in love or you don't be married to an outcome. Because so many people are sitting there going, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And then somebody comes up to you and goes, oh my God, I just cured cancer. And they're like, yeah, but that wasn't on the list, so we're not going to do that. So they're so married to an outcome, they don't see when the universe drops something even bigger and better, in your lap. And number 3 is there's always another deal. If it doesn't work, walk away, man. It's fine. You learned something and it might have hurt. It might have just sucked, but it doesn't matter. Don't ever think that there's not another deal or another opportunity. So if you look backwards, you're going to fall in love with the assets because that's all you got. You're going to be married to the outcome because you're going to sit there and go, this is what happened and here's why. And you're not going to be worried about another deal because you're thinking this is all there is. That's wrong, man. Don't do that. If you want to look into the future, like you do with the MBA way, if you look at it through behavioral economics and say, I don't need to fall in love with an asset. I don't need to be married to an outcome. I don't need to think that this is the only deal. There's going to be plenty more. Good God, dude, the freedom that hits you is amazing. And so you just kind of summed it up, what you guys do and what really, really makes the world go around through innovation. I mean, we're all in the same dream, right? And it's the people who choose to dream about innovation looking forward versus the people who want to look backwards. So, hook your saddle, your wagon, whatever you want to do to somebody who looks backwards, you're going to get yesterday's results. Hook it to somebody who goes forward, still going to get yesterday's results, but you're going to have such a clear path going forward that you're going to see a future that's so bright, so wonderful that you can get excited. And in that excitement is the truth and it's innovation. And man, we can make everything and anything happen, when you do that. So you're right, man. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Those three points in your economics is like, could be the 3 rules that every entrepreneur should live by, right? That's what we're talking about. Like that's entrepreneurial living. Like for the people that are out there that are listening, that are business clients or business owners, and you're an entrepreneur. Yeah. Those were gems, Don. You've never shared those with me before. Like all of a sudden this is the first time I've ever heard you drop that nugget. So I had to get you on a podcast for you to share that stuff with me.
Well, yeah, you didn't even pay me. Look at there. That's pretty good.
I didn't even pay you. Okay.
Yeah, you probably saw me walk in Victoria one day. So
okay. Yeah, sure enough. And so, okay. So let's get back to the backstory of the perfect plan. We've talked about the frustrations of being an economist and an accountant, and the fact that they look back versus forward. So tell me. So now we're building up to let's quickly talk about that perfect plan. Like, how did you come up with that?
Yeah, a little bit of a background. Some people say they grew up poor, but they never knew it. Well, I grew up poor and I knew it, and I didn't like it. But I didn't think there was anything to do about it. And I didn't understand that education was my way out. So I did the typical 18-year-old bouncing around, trying to figure himself out, took a couple of jobs, got to see the world. It was really an interesting time in my life. But I came back and I was like, I have some skills. I have some stuff that I can do. And I know I have a unique way of thinking. And I just got to figure out how to do it, because I realized early on that the social construct, the domestication of what society puts you on, and that's the right word, by the way, we're domesticated. Most people apply that to animals. And if you think about it, no. What domestication means is that you are able to move with the herd without any disruption, right? So we are, as a society, domesticating people all the time. You do this, you think this way, you be this way. Well, I was terrible at that, not because I was rogue, but because I was dyslexic and ADHD. And nobody back then, we're going back 50 something years, when I was a little kid in school, nobody cared. You do it this way. So after I saw the world and I came back, I'm like, I don't know, man. I think I can do this. So I threw myself back into education, started working really hard, and then I got lucky. And, luck favors the prepared. That's all there's to it. And one of the great American founders, Thomas Jefferson, said, I don't believe in luck, but I realize the harder I work, the more of it I find. So if you think about that, I had worked really hard. I didn't realize it. I didn't have these dreams of wealth or anything. I just wanted the heck out, and I knew there was a better something. I just didn't know what it was. So I got really lucky. I got a chance to start a career in sales, financial sales, and my career just skyrocketed. And before you know it, I spent about 25 years working for Wall Street firms on Wall Street. I got advanced to international teams. So I would joke that my office address was Delta 3B. In other words, pick any international Delta flight, seat 3B. That's my office, because I spent as much time in the air. I was known as a day trip king. I've day tripped to London, Hawaii, Mexico City, all these great places, because we go in and do the deals and get out. But my role back then was, for all practical purposes, just to use a word everybody understands, is I was a closer. So we'd have people on these pretty complex teams. And because of who we were, the firms I worked with, we got to work with the best and the brightest. We would go into these other countries. We would set up these schemes and these big deals, and we finance it and do things. And in return, they would give us their best people to work with. Now, this is 25 plus years ago. So this is before LinkedIn and TED Talks. There was no social media. There was very little cell phones back then. But I started noticing a trend that if they send me to Mexico, or they send me to India, or to China, or to Tokyo, or Eastern Europe, because the Russians were collapsing at the time, the old Soviets were. And I started noticing this really unique pattern that was so predictable that it started to really intrigue me. And I went back to my boss at the time when I was working on my doctorate the first time. And I said, look, I've got this idea, and I really want to study this. And he said, okay, what do I get out of it? And I said, if I'm right, you get whatever you want out of it, because I think it's the secret to everything. And he said, what are you saying? And I said, all these people you see me around the world to meet and work with, try to push it over the finish line and make it happen. And I'm good at it and I appreciate it, but there's so many people I have to work before then. But because of the teams that we're with and the uniqueness of our approach on this, we get to work with the best in the world. And he agreed. And I said, but what's interesting is they all do the same thing. Now, it might be a different deal about a different project in a different country with a different language and a different culture. Everything's different. But the process that I see them go through, the way they talk and the way they communicate is all the same. And he said, so what are you saying, kid? And I said, I think there's a secret sauce to what these elite producers, these elite engineers, these elite people that make the world go toward innovation, the people that are looking forward, like we talked about, I think there's something that they do so radically different than everybody else. If we could figure out what that is and we could capture it, it's a phenomenon that we could turn on ourselves. And he said, so you're telling me that you think you can figure out what the elite producers around the world do differently and we can apply it to ourselves? I said, yeah, I do. He said, I'll pay for that. So it took about 5 years as a doctoral study, and we figured it out. And it's called The Perfect Plan. The doctoral study is boring and hard to read, and but the commercial book is still out there. I think it's in 38 countries right now. It's called The Perfect Plan. And I'll tell you, if any of your listeners want a copy, a free e-copy, hit me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I heard this on the MBA way, and I'll immediately shoot them a free e-copy of the book. Because what it does is it goes through what you described earlier. It structures the obvious. So we didn't find anything that was like, oh my God, but we found this structure that they follow that was so articulate and so driven toward the end goal that they were allowed to look forward. They were allowed to be innovative. And it really started with their mindset. So once they had the right mindset of growth and really taking care of other people, then we knew how they communicated. We knew the science behind why it works. So nobody could come back to us and say it's just a fluke, but we also knew the why, what their belief system was that went through it. And it really became a really interesting thing, because what we realized was that these elite providers, these elite producers in the world, these great business and government and just amazing people doing different things around the world, they would get up every day and run to work to do the best they could for their employees, their customers, their family, and everybody else. They identified themselves with the outcome of their work around serving other people. They did not identify it with what they actually did. They didn't say, oh, I'm the CEO of this company, or I'm the largest dairy farmer in Italy. They didn't never say that. They would say, I get to run to work every day. I get to serve all these awesome people. Here's how I do it. And I say, well, what do you do? Oh, yeah, we make olive tortillas in Mexico. I'm like, wow, that's pretty big. So, but they didn't care about that. They were just really humble about serving other people. And this is before the whole servant leadership thing took off. Now, a lot of people overuse it.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to, for our listeners here who are I want to distill this down so our listeners get what Don's saying here, because here's the thing is that you and I've been steeped in it. You've been steeped in it for so long. You got it. Yeah. But here's what the gist of it. And this is what we did at the presentation that we had up in Kelowna, and what you and I have done in multiple presentations across Canada, actually, together, is that this is a secret sauce that when you apply it in your business, when you apply the Perfect Plan secret sauce in your business, you can literally dial up or dial back your profitability. You can dial your sales up, dial them back. You literally have control of how much you make or not make, because the way and it's a whole, and this is the thing I love about the book, Don, is because I've got a degree in psychology as well. So I was psychology and economics. So I did a psych economics degree, and then I went and became an accountant, and I thought, nah. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But I love the psychology behind it, the science behind it, why people do things the way they do. And in the book, it outlines exactly the 3 types of customers you potentially have, and how you need to talk to them, and how your team needs to think, and how you behave. And it's really perfectly laid out in terms of easy step-by-step procedures. And then, for those companies that wanted to go the extra mile, you and I put out the offer out there that we would work with them, specifically you would work with them to show them how to implement the perfect plan to be able to dial that up and dial it back, right? And so this is the thing, a perfect plan is amazing. And then I want to see as many businesses get this understanding of what that secret sauce is, right? That I'm so excited about that. And so here's the thing, you got the perfect plan, you pull it all together. Now, the real question is, and you didn't tell me this until a couple years ago, all of a sudden you're like, I got this prequel. What do you mean you got a prequel? And then you said, well, the perfect plan, there's something you can do before that. And I went, what? I want to get into that thread, right? For our listeners, right? Because it's like the perfect plan. By the way, and any of your listeners, reach out to me and I will get you a copy of the book. Don will send you a copy of the book. We'll get you a copy of the book. And if you want to talk a little bit more about maybe how Don can work with you, fantastic. Yeah. Just reach out. I want to have that resource available to you, but I want to go the next step. I want to go into the Star Wars trilogy mess up, we're going to do the 3 middle stories. They're going to do, in Star Wars, let's do the 3 first the movies, and then we're going to do the next 3 movies, but they're going to be the prequel. And then we'll do another 3 movies, but it'll be the post. So I got a funny feeling that you've done the perfect plan, which is in the middle. You've done this prequel. I bet you're going to have a sequel. You're going to have a sequel eventually. But let's get into how did you get into the prequel?
Yeah, I don't know if it's prequel, sequel, or alternate universe. I don't know because they all kind of blur out. But I've had this thing bouncing around my head for years as an economist looking forward. Yeah. And I was looking at something. I thought, this is really intriguing. And I started bouncing around with the idea. And then I was like, it's kind of one of those things that it needs to be supported with math. So I went back, I put my nerd hat on, and we came up with all these massive formulations around the theory around economics, because economists love numbers. So I said, we're going to forecast something. I need to be able to show the proof points around the qualitative side of the study. So I started doing it, and I was like, oh my God, it's real. It is going to happen. And then I was like, well, then there's a whole bunch of other questions. So just to say, hey, a comet's going to hit the Earth in April of 2032. Well, crap. Okay, well, what does that tell me? It's got to know what else goes with it. How do you deflect it? What do you do? How do you repair? You got to, it's not just saying, I understand this event. You got to say, what is the phenomenological impact that goes around that event? So we proved the theory mathematically, but that wasn't where the fun was. That wasn't the goal. So I'll tell you what the theory was. I've got, and I've proven this, women are going to take over all of global leadership between the year 2028 and 2032. And when I say global leadership, I mean the local deli, the schools, parliament, all of it. It's just going to tip over, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be awesome. So the name of the study is called Here Come the Girls, because in the next 4 years, we're going to see a dynamic shift in how we look and feel and what's going on. So we know that's going to happen. We know it.
Just now, like how do we know it? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. Like, how do you, like, what did you, not without going into the doctoral part, like you said, the super deep, like, how do you, what do you look at? What are those indicators? I mean,
well, it starts with the population, and it starts with why. Why have men been the dominant gender when it comes to business in the patriarchal system for a long time? And let me say this to your dear listeners. Yeah. I am not a male basher. This is not about bashing men. I'm a guy. I really like being a guy. I've got 3 adult sons. I really like them being boys. This is not male bashing. This is just science and looking at it. So I started looking at it going, okay, really, why have men been the dominant gender, since basically the cavemen, right? Well, it comes down to one thing and one thing only, and it's red muscle mass. You and I have a better shot at fighting off the pterodactyl or the T-Rex than your wife, Erin, does, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have.
Well, I don't know about that, because she's really fit. Erin's really, really fit.
Yeah, but here's the deal: all she's got to do is outrun us. We'll fight when they're technically us. All she's got to do is get out. But really, when you look at the rise of this industrial age, it was all about red muscle mass. How many times a day can you turn that wrench? How many welds? Right. It is all about muscle mass. We've got to go clear land in British Columbia and settle cities and do things. That's really good for men. Women can do it, but we just happen to have a different compression of red muscle mass. That helps, right?
So you're talking about the progression of how we got to that.
How we got to that point.
Yeah. Okay.
Red muscle mass. Then we start looking at it and go, but wait a minute, we peaked out during the Industrial Revolution, started coming back around, the greatest generation hit. We start looking at the bell curve of the population. And then something really crazy happened in the 60s and the 70s, and it's called the birth control pill. And when the birth control pill came out, women had a different choice. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not judging, I'm not talking, we're just talking. This is science, right? Yeah. What happened in the 1960s is a woman would say, hey, I want to go get a job. Their employer, rightfully so, would say, okay, I want to hire you, but are you going to start having babies? Are you going to be out? What's going on here? Can I trust that if I invest in you, you're going to be here? I think that's a reasonable conversation, because there wasn't any choice back then. Then all of a sudden the birth control pill comes in, and women can say, no, I'm not going to have a family for another 10 years or ever or whatever, and I'm committed. So it's like, wow. So now women enter the workforce with a different level. Now, the social construct of the women's lib movement all was helping, but really didn't do anything. So then we look up into what a leader really is, what these people who run these giant organizations are and who they are. You got to take out both ends of it and say, there's some super hyper performers out there like Elon Musk or, Sarah Blakely, who created Spanx. Yeah. They're great. Take them out of the formula. And you look at it and you say, get rid of the standard deviation, get rid of the outliers, and you got a core group of people. And then you say, okay, looking at that core group of businesses, I want to see how the indexes do against male-owned businesses. Well, the index tracked perfectly to male-owned businesses. Well, that's stupid because most businesses are run by men. And so the index is just reflecting. It's like looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, wait a minute. Take the businesses out that are run by women, not the outliers, but just the core groups, parliaments, businesses, the local delis. How did they perform to the guy? And it was 3X. So it was like, wait a minute. So
whoa, did you, so whole 3X?
Yeah.
And these are all, by the way, these are factual scientific numbers.
Oh, yeah.
The research just shows that they outperform by 3X.
Absolutely. So then I started looking at it going, okay, well, what does that really mean? And how did they get there? And then we started saying, wait, what does a leader look like? What is the build of a leader out there? The people that are running these businesses, most of them are 55 to 60 years old. Now, again, get rid of the unicorns, the little, 22-year-olds who hit it big. God bless them. That's great. But that's not real, right? So we look at it and you say, well, wait a minute. To really, really run business based on your experiences, your knowledge, and how you envision the future, you got to put some time in. You've got to experience life, lived experiences, live. Well, that takes about 30 years. So that means you start when you're 25 years old and you do about 55 years old, and you could go earlier, you could go later, but that's the vast, vast majority of CEO type people around the world or profitable business owners. So then you look at it and go, well, let's reverse engineer it. And you go back and all of a sudden you're in the late 1980s. Well, guess what happened in the late 1980s? More women started studying business. More women started going to school and saying, hey, I can make choices. I can be more long-term. I'm committed to a career, and people started talking about, oh, that's a career woman. Like, they don't say it's a career man, but they're saying it's a career woman because it was an anomaly. And this is not a judgment, guys. This is just how society looked at it, right? So you got the birth control pill so women have choice. You got the ability to go up and say, I want to get educated. I've always wanted to study finance. I've always wanted to study economics. I've always wanted to study industrial management. I could drive a forklift. I want to learn how to do this. I had this dream of owning a fish market one day, whatever. But the fog went away. Well, those young ladies, those girls who were in school coming out of it in the late 80s, guess what? They've got 30 to 35 years worth of experience now. So then we started looking at just the bell curves of the population. You run through that and you say, oh my God, they're going to start taking over between 2028 and be done by 2032. But then you look at it and say, but what else is happening? Why? What's leading toward that? We don't need red muscle mass anymore. We just don't. Mm-hmm. Between robotics, electronics, automation, whereas it used to take, 200 guys to dig an oil well, you might need 5 now because of automation, right? And instead of, if you ever go to GM and watch them build a car, go back 60 years and watch how many people were working around that car. You know how many people work around it now? 1, 2, all the robots are doing stuff.
Yeah.
So guys, guess what? We just innovated ourselves right out of the only thing we were doing really good, and that was moving heavy stuff. So you look at it and say, well, wait a minute, the economy just shifted over to a service-based economy. So red muscle mass is off the table, so our advantage is gone. These young ladies, for the time they had choice to the education, have put in their time, and they are ready. They've got the experience they need. And you start laying those things on top of each other, and it hits specifically between 2028 and 2032. That's when the shift occurs because of the population and everything else.
So, yeah. So that gives us the science behind it. Like, again, I knew that when we were going to talk about this, and depending on, what you say on the headline and the rest of it, that it could be potentially strewn as some sort of politically divisive conversation or opinion. This has got nothing to do with that. This is just, you're talking pure science. This is exactly what's happening. So I now understand that better about what's going on the demographics wise. Yeah. But the thing that really fired me up was when you started telling me about I think that's maybe where my psychology degree actually comes in more, Don, because when I think about it, it's like that I'm more interested in how the leaders, those female leaders, what they do differently. Yeah. That really impacts you. And that's what I really want to share with our listeners is going, okay, now that we know that this is coming, what does that mean for them. Like,
oh, 100%. That's the best ever. Right?
Like, what does it mean? Like, what's the implications? It's not like if you're a male and you own your company, you think, oh, geez, I better just sell it. No. That's the thing I love about your research and what you teach is that you go, here's the juice, here's the secret sauce from here about what also makes them elite. You just talked about the numbers. You just talked about the demographic moving, but I want to get to that. I know you probably were going there when I rudely interrupted, but I just wanted to get into that part.
Well, you have to know why. And I really appreciate it. It has nothing to do with woke and all the political movements. That it's going to happen whether they're or not. It does not matter. So, but the obvious question in science, whenever you get into a waterfall effect or a rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it, and you sit there and go, oh my God, we just figured it out. Well, then you start asking more questions, and you start saying the obvious question. Okay, women are going to take over in 2028, 2032. They seem to be well trained and the education is there. The service model is more acclimated to their style. You don't need the red muscle mass. And you start going, well, wait a minute, but just to be blunt, are they any good at it? Well, yeah, they're 3X over the guys. And then you say, okay, why? And that's where it gets cool. Mm-hmm. And so we looked at it to give you a little teaser on this. We interviewed a lot of consumers, male and female. And we said, what do you want? To choose a company that you're going to buy from, what are you looking for? And they gave us 3 things. We wrote it down. Okay, that's cool. They all said the same thing. Then we went to employees of big companies or any companies and said, hey, you're consuming the idea of this company. You're buying into working there. Now, it's an interesting demographics in North America right now, the United States and Canada. The average working person in the United States and Canada is 38 years old right now, and they change jobs every 3 years. So it's like, what gets you to leave, and why are you buying into this new organization, right? Why are you consuming this? So remember, when we talk to regular consumers, buyers of products, they said they want 3 things. We ask employees, why do you work for this company? What do you want from them? Same 3 things. And then we went to women as a whole. Now, the other 2 were boys and girls. That wasn't gender specific. But then we went to women that said, what do you want as a woman? Same 3 things. So I'm like, wow, that's an economic anomaly. That's really pretty cool. We need to explore that. So we put that off to the side. And then we started hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of interviews on these female leaders that are already there, the pioneers, the ones who got there first. Not the outliers, but the ones who ground it out, just made it happen. And we started studying their process. That's when it all became clear. That's when we noticed that this is significant because what female leaders do actually checks the boxes for what consumers want, employees want, and what women want. And that's amazing. And I'll tell you what they want. When you talk to the general population, you say, why do you buy an iPhone? Why do you buy that car? Why do you do it? When you're looking at a choice, knowing, and this is very true about society now, you can't make a bad decision. If you buy an iPhone or an Android, whatever, they're good. They work, right? But why do you buy Apple? Or why do you buy this? We ask people why they work for a company. Same 3 answers. We ask women, what do they want? Same 3 answers in life. What they want is to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. So they're saying, if you see me and you hear me, then you understand me. And if you see me, hear me, and understand me, this is the key, Eric, then you value me. And I just want to be wanted. I just want to be valued. And that was a big, big tipping point in this study because we're sitting there going, oh my God, whoever's listening to this, if you have customers, trust me, male or female, they want 3 things from you. They want you to see them, they want you to hear them, and they want you to understand them. And if you do that for them, then they're going to feel valued by you. And that's what locks it up. That's when they're like, oh my God, I work with MBA because they see me, they hear me, they value me, and they understand me, they value me.
Yeah.
That's huge. But then we're looking at it going, all right, that's cute, but why are the women tripling the guys in the same space? And it came down to the decision-making process. And this is very important. When a guy is told that there's a problem and it needs to be fixed, what does he do? Jumps in with authority. Okay, here's what you do. Just fix it. I do it. Every dude does it. Okay. Just fix it. That's what we do. It's how we're wired. We started watching these female leaders and saying, what are you doing? And we started watching, and we interviewed them for 700 hours, all these women all around the world. And they all gave us unbelievable consistency to the point where they were using the same words. And they weren't related. They weren't connected. There's different industries. It was just, they were giving us their secrets. They were saying, this is how we approach problems. And this is how they do it. Mm-hmm. The first thing a female leader does is when somebody comes to her with a problem, she immediately expresses sympathy to the problem, not the person. So what she's doing is acknowledging the problem and saying, that's real. And I'm really sympathetic to that. I get it. You're right. That is a problem. Thank you for bringing it to me. Then she shows empathy for the person involved. So she goes from sympathy and acknowledgement of the problem to empathy of the person. And then when she sees the person, she's like, how does that make you feel? I know this isn't your fault, or even if it was your fault, are you okay? How do you feel? How does this, I don't want you to lose sleep over this. So she's showing empathy to them. And then, this is where it gets really cool. Then she says, you know what? I need you to tell me what to do. So she meets them in the middle. We had a couple of women say they meet in the gray. So they actually go to the person who was affected and say, tell me your story. What would you do differently? And what happens is 9 out of 10 times, that person realizes that they knew the answer all along. And because she's engaging them, she's giving them permission to do it. So think about this. What does anybody want? They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be understood. Therefore, they feel valued. What these female leaders are doing is saying, I'm sympathetic to the problem. I see it. It's there. It's real. Tell me how you feel. I want to be empathetic to you. I want to hear you. So I see it. I hear you. And then when she meets them in the middle and says, how would you do this? How can I help you? But what are your ideas? She's actually letting them talk. So she understands them. And by doing so, she creates a level of empowerment that does two things. One, it radically increases production because that person feels empowered. They feel seen, heard, and understood, which means they feel valued. And that is the key thing. But the super secret sauce is, what it really means is they've been given permission to go do the right thing. And that means they don't have to come back and ask for it again. So the level of productivity goes up 3x because the people, to use what you and I have always said for years, the Sullivan theory, they become more self-managed. They become an organization that can operate themselves because they've been given permission to do it. But what the female leader is doing is saying, I'm sympathetic to the problem. I see it. I'm empathetic to you. I can hear you. Tell me your story so I can understand you. That's all wrapped in a bow, which means I value you. You got this. You can go do it. And they do it. And they keep doing it at a higher production level. And that time spent bogging down leadership is gone. No, sometimes stuff happens. You got to get people involved. But 99% of the time, any of their future problems were settled without the leaders ever knowing it. And it was converted energy-wise into production.
So Guy, I want to clarify something here because I kind of, you're intertwining, and I don't know if any of the listeners are following with the same way I am. You've intertwined kind of the customer and the employee. There's a bit of a
that's the part. Yeah,
because there's a 3 times result. Is it the 3 times result because of how the customer feels, or is it a 3 times result because of the way the staff is empowered to do the work, or is it the magic of the two coming together?
Yeah. If you know what the customer wants and you create an environment where your team is delivering on that, it is unstoppable. So think about that. By working with her own team, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, I'm empowering you, I'm sympathetic to the problem, I'm empathetic to you, I understand you, you have permission, you are valued. Their production goes through the roof. And it exactly coincides with a customer who says, I want to work with you, I want to buy your products, but I really want to be seen, heard, understood, and valued. Well, guess what she just taught her employees to do? To be seen, heard, understood, and valued.
Right.
And then you say, wow, these customers are buying stuff right and left. Why? I don't know. Well, you've got a culture that supports, see, hear, understand, and value. You've got a culture that's as sympathetic to the problems, empathetic to the people, and really meets in the middle to figure out how to solve it so their production goes up. But they take that mindset and they shift it so radically that the customer feels it. And the customer is buying culture. They're not buying product. Like I said, iPhone and Android, they're fine to me. They're both, I'm an iPhone guy, but whatever. They're fine. But I like the culture of Apple. And so that's why you end up doing it. So you create a culture where your employees are empowered, your customers empowered, and then you look at the population curve and you just give an adrenaline shot to 53% of your population, which is women, because that's all they want.
Anybody who's watching the video here, because we record the video and then so people can see it. But those are listening to it and can't see this. I actually have my stylus pen here on my iPad and I'm writing notes like crazy. I hope the rest of you are doing the same. Just writing down these notes because I just got these two big nuggets out of this. It's like the customer feels valued and then they feel empowered. So it's all a feeling. It's a feeling issue, which I think, and this is what we're talking about for employees too. They feel valued. They feel empowered. And it's all the feelings things, which guys normally suck at.
Yeah.
Right. We normally suck at it. Like, the men are from Mars, women are from Venus book. I remember when that first came out and you start reading, you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because women are better at feelings versus men. And that, again, that's not a judgment. It's just fact. Like, let's just deal with that.
We've been trained that way.
We've been trained that way. Yeah. Because you gotta be there. And it's not like there's anything wrong with it. It's just the isness of it that I like. And so, but here's the thing is that, and this is what I want our readers to really take away on this. It's like our watchers. Sorry, not readers. See, I'm thinking we're talking books now because your book. The book is coming out. Here comes
it should be out.
The book is going to be coming out in May. Again, for anybody listening here, please just reach out and I will get you a copy of that book too because it's amazing. All right, I got down on my train of thought here. I got excited about the book, but the thing is, what I want the listeners, what I want our business owners to literally think about here is going, how can we then apply this research, apply these findings, apply these secret sauce to our business? It doesn't mean we're telling you have to get rid of all the men and bring women out.
Of course not.
Right. But that's, you know what I mean? That's the message can kind of be sounding like that sometimes, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking. And this is what I love about the perfect plan. I loved about the perfect plan. And that's what I love about the message here on Here Come the Girls is we're talking about another level of secret sauce.
Yeah. That
when you hear it, it's very commonsensical because I thought about it like when I built my house here. Don, I went through hell in a handbasket building this house. Yeah. And the developer was a complete ass. He didn't see, he didn't hear, he didn't understand. He just went, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll fix it. And I'm like, the way he talked to me, I'm like, are you not paying attention to what your customer really wants? And because of course I'm a business strategist and it's always about strategy. I'm like, what are you doing? And so everything here, I didn't feel valued with him and I definitely didn't feel empowered. Like all the things he did was exactly the opposite of what you just told me.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
true.
You could take that, and I'm sure all of our listeners could take an example of going into a business and not having that happen. And so now if you have your own business and going, okay, how can we create a culture to implement the Here Comes the Girls secret sauce?
Yeah. Right? Well, I can tell you, this is the big aha moment when we finish the study. Number one, I want everybody to hear this. It is not a girl thing. It's just something girls do, which means we can train the guys. So just step back and forget about the boy-girl part of it, the X's and the Y's, and think about it. We have a social construct that's changing away from the industrial side of things, although we do have industry. It's just not as predominant as it used to be. We're moving to a service-based economy. The customer now has choice. In fact, the choice is so unique, in most cases, you can't make a bad decision. So when it commoditizes the top 3 or 4 people or the top 3 or 4 accounting firms or the top 3 or 4 whatever, you got to sit there and go, okay, but at the end of the day, what is that customer going to be drawn to? They're going to be drawn toward a corporate culture that sees them, hears them, and understands them, which means they value them. That's it. How do I hire better employees? I need to make sure I see them, I hear them, I understand them so that they feel value. How do I take care of the women that work here? I need to make sure I see them, I hear them, I understand them, and I value them. But then you look at what these great elite female leaders have done, and it's just about tweaking the decision-making process. When you're critically thinking through something, guys, I beg you, and I'm having to learn how to do this. So I'm not saying I know all of it, but guys, please take a breath. Breathe and step back. Before you jump in and fix it, be sympathetic to the problem, which means I see it. I get it. It's real. Empathetic to the person involved. Take an extra 5 minutes, man, and just say, I get it. How do you feel? Don't lose sleep over this. This isn't your fault. And then instead of just telling them how to fix it, which means they're not going to learn anything, you say to them, how would you do this? And I think you're going to find guys that 75, 80% of the time, they know how to do this. They're just afraid, or they're looking for permission because they're so used to you, because of your male dominance, telling them how to do it. They're like, well, I know how to do this, but I guess I better have him say it. So you're creating a culture that doesn't feel understood. Therefore, they don't feel valued. They're just machines. So guys, if you could start taking a few steps back, breathe, be sympathetic to the problem, empathetic to the person, meet them where they are, get them to explain to you. You're going to find that in the future, you're not going to have as many meetings as you're having now. You're not going to have as many problems, at least getting up to your office, because it's being settled out there. It's being solved. And when they solve it, they're coming up with new and innovative processes to drive it forward, which means more revenue, more customers, more everything. And then they're going to be reflecting to their customers, and your customers are going to say, man, I know MBA is special, but I never knew an accounting firm could make me feel this good. Oh, well, how do you feel? I feel like you see me. I feel like you hear me when I have a question. I feel like you understand me. I don't know. I just feel valued. It could be you. It could be Aaron. It could be anybody. It doesn't matter. So that's the big thing, man. It's not a girl thing. It's just something girls do, which means it can be trained.
Yeah.
A couple of little sidebars that came out of it, which I thought was really, really interesting. And there's some math that needs to work out over the next 50 years. One of the questions that came up was men tend to step in it sometimes. They walk into scandals, sexual scandals, business scandals, ethical scandals, all that kind of stuff. And we don't see that much out of men, or excuse me, out of women. So the question was, are these female leaders more ethical, more direct and all? Reality is we don't have any data to support it because it's so concentrated in male dominance now. They get all the rewards and they get all the problems. We'll know how that grows, and we'll be able to see. My gut is because of the nurturing nature of most women, I bet it's going to be a lot less than guys. Because when you see someone, you hear somebody, you understand them, and you value them, you're going to be a little less inclined to go off the seat of your pants and make a quick bad decision.
Okay.
So guys, in their decision-making route, the trek that they go through, they're actually preventing a lot of personal problems too. So that's big. And the other part, my favorite part, Eric, was the overwhelming theme of these elite women who are already there. And if you think about it, if you're already a female business owner or a CEO or a senior executive today, you probably had some pretty good fights early on. You had to get up and stand up and take the punches and live through this puberty that our societies were going through. And we're here. So let's celebrate. But yeah, I get it. You were the first ones in. All of those women, almost unanimously, I should say, I'd say the upper 99% range, every single one of them says the one thing they want to be in a leader is a woman. They don't want to feel like they have to act like a guy. They don't want to be hard. They don't want it. And they told me, they said, we want to be a woman. We want you to be the guy. We all have our roles. There's no blending, blurring, or whatever. Be you. No, if you're somebody who's in the middle, whatever, we're cheering for you. It's fine. But they didn't, for all practical purposes, and the joke, what do you call a rich, powerful woman who's beautiful and has a lot of money? What does society call her?
Yeah, we used to call her a bitch.
Yeah, bitch, 100%. And But they think, well, she must be a bitch because she had to claw her way through that.
Yeah. And then the flip side is...
This one might be true, but...
And what do you call a man? And what do you call a man who does all that stuff?
Successful?
Yeah, which is complete horseshit. Right?
Yeah, totally. It's just society putting framework out there that's not real. So what I tell people all the time, and I've studied thousands of years of historical social dynamics. I've gone back to the Romans, the Han Dynasty. I've looked at how things go. And I can tell you, man, we repeat ourselves over and over and over. There is no new. There's nothing out there. We are predictable human beings. We just adjust and adapt as we continue to innovate and move forward. As our dreams get bigger and we get more tools and we get better at it, then we open the doors for more and more success. So if you think about that, that's all this is. We're going through puberty again. Society is changing, but it's changing for the better. So if you look at it, I put my econ nerd hat on and you say, well, what's going to happen in 10 years? I think it's going to freaking boom. Because customers are going to be spending more people are going to be employed, companies are going to be more efficient. The connectivity between the leadership and the people out on the streets is going to be bigger and tighter and bonder. So everything about this is good. There is nothing wrong with this. So I can't figure out why anybody would jump on it. The question is, are you prepared? That's the question. You don't want to be in this social shift that's going to happen in business. It's already started happening, but you're going to see the dynamics in 2028 to 2032 just because of the math working out. But it's already starting to happen. You don't want to be in 2033 or 2030 or 2035, which is only 6 years from now, by the way, to 2030. You're going to look at that and go, man, we missed that. What happened? We were asleep at the wheel, or I just didn't want to do it. Man, I'm telling you, every business needs to stop and take a breath and start being prepared, because when the economy explodes and takes off like it's going to do, you better be ready or your customers aren't going to choose you. And that's the deal. That's what separates everything out, because you can have the best idea in the world, right? But it doesn't mean anything until somebody writes you a check. It's not a business till they write you the second check. And then you've got a customer, not just an explorer. And what these women have been able to do is unlock that secret. I know my customers want to be seen, heard, and understood, so they're valued. I know my employees want to be seen, heard, and understood, so they're valued. I know all the women that want to work here on top of that want to be seen, heard, understood, and they're valued. How am I going to approach leadership? I'm going to make sure everybody sees me through sympathy. They're going to hear me through empathy. I'm going to meet them in the middle so they know I understand them, which means I'm going to empower them, which means they're going to be valued. And in that value, they will turn that knob up. And man, watch out. Because those are the same people that buy stuff.
I do. So what I love about this is, when you hear trends in business, and we come into the wrap this up, because you and I could probably go on for hours. The way you and I go, we could go for hours and hours. But we should wrap this up soon. But what I want to kind of round this off at the top is that, with a lot of these businesses, they feel like you have to do this to keep up with everybody else. The wonderful thing about this is once you get to understand the nuance, the underpinning of Here Comes the Girls, what you have here, is that it's something that once you apply it, you yourself will love it. Because you will become more connected with your customers. You will become more connected with your staff. Yeah. And it's no longer a manipulation. It's not a manipulation of trying to manipulate the customer to buy or manipulate the staff to produce, which is the old school way, right? Disturb and motivate. They just got to disturb. Yeah. It's not that. We become more connected because you start to really see, like you said, see, hear, and understand people so they're valued, and then you empower them to improve themselves. And so you naturally, anytime I see, hear, and understand someone and then empower them, that's why I do coaching. That's why I love strategic advisory, because when I see someone empowered, I feel so much better. I get that urge of adrenaline and energy, seeing someone's eyes light up and go, oh my gosh, I've been valued. But now you see, you've just taken what I've experienced in life and you've shown me the science behind it. And here's the formula and here's how it works. And so for our business owner, for all our listeners out there, you can do this. And not only when you do it, it's going to improve your business. You're going to feel great and it's just going to be fantastic. So Don, this has been fantastic. And so, and then the last question, that we want to leave them is like, are you prepared to apply this? And to just thank you again for your valuable offer to everybody, all our listeners here. If you want a copy of The Perfect Plan or Here Comes the Girls, which is coming out in May, reach out to us here at MBA or reach out to Don on LinkedIn. You can find Don on www.donbarden.com.
Yep.
And we'll get you a copy of the book, the ebook. And if you're interested in the conversation with Don about maybe him working with your business, man, we've got some clients that worked with you and they've just actually raved about working with you, Don. You're fantastic. So I'm your biggest cheerleader, dude. I'm your biggest cheerleader.
Well, I tell you, I love Kelowna and that southeastern BC area, man. I'd come there in a heartbeat. So if anybody's around there and they need help, let me know. Or just hit me up and say, hey, I heard you and Erik talking on the NBA Way podcast, and we'll set up a quick call and chat to see what we can do. But I love helping people. I love sharing this message. And, it's interesting. I'm a boy dad, right? So I've raised these guys to be pretty good dudes. I'm really, really proud of them. But now they have wives and fiancés and girlfriends. And so it's like, wow, I'm cheering for these girls. I'm watching them work and I'm watching their careers, and it just warms my heart. I know you're a girl dad, right? So, when you look at it, and this is nothing against the guys. Guys are going to have beautiful, bright futures. But this concept about here come the girls is so empowering to women. You got to do it. But I can tell you, it's going to be really hard if you try to do it yourself. It needs to be a collective. It needs to be a community. So if there's anything we can do to help you, even if it's just helping to plant some seeds, we'll do it. So between us, the MBA process, and how you guys go through, my God, I mean, think about what's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be great. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for what you're doing.
Hey, thanks, Don. I appreciate that. And there you go. We'll end that session right there, and we'll see our listeners at the next podcast. Thanks again, Don.
Thank you.
If you're a business owner or CPA who believes the accounting profession has let you down, then please reach out to us at www.mbacpa.ca so we can have a chat to see if we're a fit to work together. We're always looking forward to talking to you. See you next time.